That's good. My name is Norm Ellis. This is Grace Baptist Church, the Adult One Bible Study. Glad to have everybody here online and in the classroom. And today we're going to be doing the last study in Deuteronomy, and we'll be in Matthew starting next week. But today we're going to be talking about God's power, and it's in Deuteronomy 33. The last chapter is 34. We're going to touch on that, not as part of the study, but just to make sure we finish out correctly here, right? And we're in session number 13, which starts on page 118 if you're following along with a study book. And be looking at these two areas, king, verses 1 through 5. Then we're going to skip a few verses. Doesn't mean you can't read them on your own. And we'll be looking at dwelling place, verses 26 through 29. This is all in Deuteronomy 33. And our main idea, the main point today is that Christians can live without fear, knowing that they serve the one true God. And this is an important lesson that the Israelites had to learn. And it was a difficult thing for them because they'd come out of the pagan area of Egypt, right? Where they'd been for several hundred years. 300 years? Can't remember what it was.
Yeah, 400.
Anyway, 300 or 400 years, yeah. Anyway, so they had to relearn all these things that Abraham and Isaac and Jacob knew. Because when they went into Egypt to escape the famine, they stayed. And they should have went back home, but they didn't. Anyway, let's have a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, thank you for the opportunity we have to teach your word and listen to your word and understand your word. Lord, it's an important thing for us as Christians to know these principles and these ideas, Lord. And I just thank you for the opportunity we have to learn them, to share our ideas on these things, and to let it get into ourselves, our whole being, Lord. And just pray for those that are on their way here. Keep them safe on the road as they're traveling, and for those who can't make it today, whether they're sick or away from us, Lord, just pray that you'd be with them as well. Thank you for all you've done in your Son's name. Amen. So I can't wait to get into Matthew, but I also can't wait to finish this one. Kind of torn, right? Anyway, so God's power is what the title is. And the title it's a little bit misnomer in a way, and that's the wrong term perhaps too, but we're talking about the power of God to affect people's lives, but also the fact that people's lives need to be obedient to God. And without that, then God's power in our lives could be a bad thing.
Oh, yeah.
Right? As Christians, we can be chastised too as well. Would anybody like to read a verse? Anybody? Any volunteers?
I don't want.
You don't have to if you don't want to. I'll give you this one here.
Okay.
There you go. Thank you. I do have a couple others for other people to come in, or I'll do them. It's no big deal. Oh, I forgot. I got to look up some other verses too. Well, I'll be ready to do that. Let's see, Exodus 24. Just a moment here. Exodus. There we go. 24. I saw the first one, right? Yeah. As I was going through this lesson, there were so many cross references. I kind of got lost and off track, so I didn't put them into my verses here. So what I should do is I should write them over here just so we have another reference point in case you're wondering where that was. Because sometimes I talk too quickly, and I know that. So this is additional verses here. I'll call these. This is going to be Exodus. No, wait. I knew it was going to be that one. Numbers. Then the Exodus one. Which means I looked up the wrong one first. Oh well. 20.
They're all good, no matter.
Well, I know, but I mean,
I know.
the way they're outlined in the lesson, if I don't get them down right, you were wondering, why is he reading that? And Joshua.
There was one verse that was odd to me, but I can't remember which one now.
I remember now. I already got these verses down in my other notes on this, so that's okay. I'm covered. Just realized. Alrighty. So in our handouts today, you should have a copy of these. Those of you online, if you want a copy of your very own in color, these guys here got black and white. Sorry, guys. But if you want an in color digital copy, just contact our church Pastor Matthew Ellis, and he'll be sure to put you on the mailing list, email list, so you get a copy of those as well. We're on the first handout, though, for those of you who have one. And the very first page says intro paragraph. I'm going to go ahead and read that part. It's also in your study book, by the way, too. It says, in this scene, you may have been the parent, or you may have been the child. The child is standing on the side of the pool. The parent is in the water, arms outstretched, saying, "You can do it. I will catch you. I promise you'll be fine." The child is hesitating. Ready? On the count of 3, still hesitant, but the child finally lunges and is grabbed safely just as he reaches the water. It goes splash, right? So what is the connection between fear and insecurity in something like this? Is there a connection there? The fear, you've never done it before, right? So you feel insecure about it, right? Obviously, right? I remember when I first went in the Air Force. Oh, I had a lot of insecurity there because I'd never been in the Air Force before, I'm just a kid. And I didn't know what was going on. I'd heard rumors about boot camp and all these things, It was an exciting time, too. It really was, because I was fearful, because I didn't know what was happening. And I can understand, people in those situations feeling that way, right?
When I first went into nursing, I was hesitant to give a shot. I had to give myself a shot first, but when I first started to give a shot to somebody, I hesitated. And my instructor forced my hand and it bent the needle.
Oh no, that's not a good thing.
I never hesitated again.
No.
She straightened that needle out and used the alcohol swab, and she gave that shot. I never hesitated.
So, but that kind of thing sticks with you.
It did, and with God too. We should be fearful of certain things. Godly fear, not a deathly fear, but.
Well, when there's the unknown, you're gonna be fearful.
Yeah.
And that's a human emotion. It's normal, right? There is this connection though between fear and insecurity, and that's something we all deal with. So what is the connection between trust and security? What do you think about that? Trust and security. Do you feel more secure when you trust somebody?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that child, even though he was hesitant, he trusted his mom or dad, who's ever there to catch him. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. And so that trust hopefully was nurtured before that point. There's something that they do in psychological seminars and things like that. It's called the trust fall. Have you ever heard of that before?
Yes.
I don't know. People I don't know catching me. That's the whole idea. Do you trust those people? And so you close your eyes and you fall backwards, and these people you didn't know previously, are going to catch you and not let you hit the ground. I'm having a hard time with that. But that's part of learning to trust, right? Learning that kind of a thing. And sometimes we have to do those things. So behind me I have 2 columns, trust and distrust, right? So what are some groups that might fall into each column? What would you put on there for I trust this or I distrust this?
The government.
Oh, the government. You trust the government, right? Or is it the distrust?
It's distrust. Yeah, that's enough said.
I'm going to put government. What other things do we trust or distrust?
You trust your parents.
Oh, parents. I like that one, yeah. Hopefully you do, right? Now, of course, there's always situations where somebody had a very bad childhood. Maybe they were abused. Maybe they were foster kids. That would be a hard thing for them to understand. But for a lot of people, we do trust our parents, right? And that's a good thing.
And even though some kids didn't have that trustful they know that parents should be able to be trusted. They grow up knowing other people can trust their parents
Does marriage have one R or two?
too.
That's what I thought. Marriage, partner.
Yes. You should trust your marriage.
I put that under trust.
Yeah.
It could though go under distrust as well if you've had a bad experience in marriage, right? Anyway, what other things? Anything else come to mind that we trust or distrust? There's got to be more than just the government we distrust.
Right.
How about, so many things tie back to the government though.
Too many things.
How about a childhood bully?
Right.
Maybe, even as I'm older, I think back at some of these people that would bully me, and I wouldn't trust them, you know? So it's something in my childhood like that you know, made me what I am, and unfortunately there's bad things sometimes too.
Right. Well,
At least you didn't trust them then.
What's that?
At least you didn't trust them then. Maybe they have a chance to redeem themselves.
Well, that's true. That's true. I went to a reunion one time, and this one guy who did pick on me, you know, I grew bigger than him. But he was acting like, oh yeah, we're buddy buddies. We were never buddy buddies. But in his mind, I guess maybe the fact that he was having fun with me,
yeah.
bullying me or whatever it was, in his mind, well, that was a fun thing, you know.
Welcome.
So, yeah, I like you. You know, I had fun bullying you. So we're talking about things you trust or distrust, Steve. And so we have parents and marriage partner. Those are normally things we would trust. I know there's exceptions. And normally we would distrust would be the government, maybe a childhood bully. As you got older, you might not trust that person later on. Anything else come to mind in these things?
Car.
My motorcycle.
You trust or distrust it?
I trust it.
Oh, okay.
Well,
Or let's put it, automobiles too.
yeah, that.
You gotta trust. If you get in the car and you drive
That's
on
right.
vacation,
I was
you're
gonna
gonna trust that it'll get you there.
I was going to put car on the other side because you have to be cautious. I mean,
Oh, that's a good one. How about used car salesman?
Yeah.
oh yeah,
You might trust your car, but do you trust the guy who sold it to you?
right.
I like that one.
As for my motorcycle, no. As for the car, yes.
All right.
Last Sunday I woke up to my tire being low and Jesse took it up later and got it fixed. Oh, lawyers.
The weatherman.
Ooh, I like that one too.
Yeah.
They're just guessing.
Or even the weather. You can't trust the weather either, really.
That's true, but
These days,
you can't really control that. But this
No,
guy
you
should.
can't
He
control
should
it.
know. He or she should know.
Yeah, well,
news reporters
Oh.
distrust.
yes.
Okay. The news in general sometimes.
Yes.
Yes.
And there's lots of examples of that, but we're not going to get into that. Oh,
You should be able to trust your minister
Oh, I like
or
that.
Mm-hmm.
Your pastor.
yeah, some
Pastor slash
guidance. Yeah, spiritual guidance.
Best friends, you should trust.
And again, sometimes you can't because of experience you've had. For instance, my youngest son and his wife, they're not going to church right now because of what happened in the church. And he was associate pastor, and they did him badly.
Oh.
And now they're not going to church at all. And I'm trying to encourage him. You know, not all churches are this way, but you go through a bad experience. It's really hard to trust again.
Well,
But I think it goes most part there, though. Yeah.
yeah, you have to learn to trust people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as a
Yeah.
teenager, I went through something. I mean, there was a terrible thing went on in the church I was with as a teenager, but that didn't destroy me forever.
Yeah. I asked the question is why would you put a particular group in each column? We kind of talked about that already, right? We got an understanding of why
Yeah.
we would do that. Anyway, so we're coming to the end of our study of these two books of the Bible. So let's come in a little bit here when we talk about these other things here. And we've been in Numbers, and then we were in Deuteronomy. We're just now finishing up. We're in this last point. If you could look up here, you'd see there's Numbers is up there. Deuteronomy. And we're in the final days of Moses, and it starts in chapter 31 and goes all the way to the end of 34. And that's where we're going to be looking at today, basically, that area. So, has any of these things we've talked about in the past, now maybe you can't think of any one thing, but hopefully there's some things that maybe has made a difference in your life, seeing how Moses did things with the children of Israel and how God led them and all that stuff. Do these things, in other words, they're asking from a perspective of, well, we've done all this, what do you think about it? You know, can we learn stuff from what we've read here and studied? I hope so.
Yeah.
How God has dealt with people in the past and how He deals with us in the future, and how very similar it is. We sometimes think, well, that's the Old Testament. You know, we're in the New Testament. It's all different. Well, there's a connection between the two. For you to understand fully the Old Testament, you have to also know the New Testament, because it fulfills those things. Jesus said, I didn't come to abolish the laws. I came to fulfill them. So when you think of that, then what does Jesus say about the Old Testament and things like that? And if you were to ask that question, that'd be a good question, because he says quite a little bit. Hey, good to see you. Come on in, everyone. In one of our handouts is handout number 2, which is the third page of our group. It talks about Jesus and Deuteronomy, and there's a whole series of cross-references here. This is for your additional study later, but it tells you the different places where Jesus referred to Deuteronomy. So sometimes we have this idea, well, that's just the Old Testament. I don't care about the Old Testament. You know, but guess what? Jesus did. He spoke about it all the time, didn't he? So it is important to know that stuff. So that's why I included that handout there as well. So Abraham, that's Stephen.
Oh, how you doing?
Stephen, this is Abraham. And you know Sharon, and you know Steve, so all that stuff. Okay. Anyway, and my name's Norm. Let's get everybody out there in the internet land that whole idea. So we're in the last section. Do you have a copy of the book? Your book, Teddy? No? That's fine, because I've got an extra one for you. If you want to look on, you can. And we're not following page by page in that necessarily, but it's a good guide for us, and we use a lot of the stuff in there. So the verses for today's study comes from the section identified on the poster as the final days of Moses. And that was this poster right here. Final days of Moses, right? This is the last part of our outline. You can't see the numbers. It's been covered up by that other way. And I should have probably taken that down, but oh well, I'll take it down soon. In Moses' final word to the Israelites, the children of Israel, he was trying to prepare them for the next major events in their journey. We talked about that earlier. What's the next big thing coming up for the children of Israel? What are they going to be doing now?
Cross over the river into the promised land.
So right outside of the promised land, they're knocking on the door, right? And they have to cross the Jordan River, and then they come to the big fortress city of Jericho.
Joshua fought the battle.
There you go. And unfortunately, we're not going to get into that part because we're jumping into Matthew after this. But that's okay. We go back and forth between the Old and New Testament. In Moses' final word to the Israelites, he sought to prepare them for the next major events of their journey, which was the conquest of the Promised Land, where they were before, and they left, went to Egypt, and now they've returned. And God had promised them that they have their land back, their ancestral land. He also reminded them why they had every reason to trust God as they moved forward into Canaan. And so we talked about trusting and distrusting and those things and why. And you see some of the things we talk about trusting here and some of the things we distrust over here. So we're in the first section here. We're going to talk about king. I do have some extra verses. So I'm going to hand them out if you don't mind. I'm going to give you the Genesis one, give you something to read, and I'll give Steve over here this one here. You thought you were going to escape.
Yes, I thought it
Hey,
late enough.
Hey, if I got to talk all this, you can at least read a couple verses.
Yeah.
Come on. All righty. But anyway, in the first section we're looking at today, called King. For our first 5 verses, I want you to listen for the blessing that Moses spoke over Israel. Now we've talked about this throughout Numbers and Deuteronomy. And what was Moses saying over and over to the children of Israel? You remember? Not specifically,
I'm
but
the
general.
Lord your God. And
yeah,
he's the only, to remind them that there are no other gods.
Right. That, as my chosen people, you need to follow me. You need to obey me. Be faithful to me. Don't be unfaithful. Be faithful. And that's a real basic thing that even today we can understand that, right? We should be faithful and obedient to God. And that's what he would say over and over again. So now this is his swan song. You know what a swan song is? It's when you know you're going to die or you're going to leave or whatever thing, and you want one last time to say something to people, right? And so he's taking that opportunity because he is going to be dying. And he can't go into the promised land because of the sin that he did in the wilderness.
Moses,
that's right. And so this is his last opportunity to do this, his final words. He's preparing them for this major event of now moving into the promised land, and he won't be leading them. You realize how hard that would be for Moses, for anybody? For 40 years, he's been leading these people. And now the biggest hurdle, he can't go. It must have been terrible for Moses.
How do you think that the people saw that? Because he stood fast with God all through this and still convincing them to keep going and pushing forward and being, honorable to God. And then when he got to that point, then God told him, no, you're not going. I wonder how the people felt like, well, of all people, he should be the one that crossed it because he led us all this way and went through even our revolting against him.
All kind of things. The Bible doesn't specifically say much about that, except for the fact that, of course, Moses was the spokesman for God, and that was a real important thing. And it's something that God took very, very seriously. So when God told him to speak to the rock, and instead, in anger, he struck the rock 2 times in front of all of Israel, it was a big thing.
And he was making an example of it, like you better honor me as God because of that.
Exactly, and so he didn't kill him right there. He could have.
No,
He didn't.
Right.
He said, okay, you can continue to lead the people of Israel, but you won't be able to promise land. There has to be some penalty, and this is what it's going to be. So anyway, but yeah, that's a good question, and we don't know exactly. But it's a thing to ponder, isn't it?
A lot of times when we honor God and do what he says, he blesses us with, things and the right road to go down, and we see the fruits of, our labors pay off because we follow the Lord. But here he was going through all of this, and he went and saw it to the end. He messed up one time, and the rest of it was just kind of scratched.
Because it was such an important position he was holding, of course.
Well, Moses knew from the beginning, right after he struck the rock and God had it, that he was going to lead him up there, but that's about as far as it was going to go.
Yeah. But Moses had done all he could to prepare him, and maybe that was an impetus for Moses, knowing I'm not going to go with them. I better make sure they're ready. That could be part of it too. I don't know. It's a good question. I hate these questions we don't know right now.
Yeah.
We'll ask them. We'll ask them when we're with the Lord, right?
Yeah.
So let's look at the first 5 verses here, and this is in Deuteronomy chapter 33. We're going to look at verses 1 through 5. And in these verses, I want you to listen for the blessing that Moses spoke over Israel. So he told them all these things. He said, "You better do it. Or these things are going to these bad things." But then he wanted to make sure that they knew there was a blessing for them also.
Yeah.
Is that a good thing? I think it's a great thing. When you're teaching kids, do you always bam, bam? No, you give them a carrot, you give them praise, you give them, whatever it might be, positives, right? And that's, I think, part of what Moses is trying to do here as well. He didn't want to impart in them with just purely only negative things, but also with the positive things. So let's look at the first 5 verses. Who is number 1?
I do.
You do? Okay.
This is from the Holman Bible. This is the blessing that Moses, the man of God, gave the Israelites before his death. He said, "The Lord came from Sinai and appeared to them from Seir. He shone on them from Mount Paran and came with 10,000 holy ones, with lightning from his right hand for them. Indeed, he loves the people. All your holy ones are in your hand, and they assemble at your feet. Each receives your words." Moses gave us instructions of possession for the assembly of Jacob. So he became king of Jeshurun, he being God, became king of Jeshurun when the leaders of the people gathered with the tribes of Israel.
Okay. So he is doing what? He is coming before the people. He's going to do what to them? Give them-
Moses is giving them instruction.
He's giving them a special kind, though. It's a blessing. He's blessing them. And this is an important thing because the what they call the patriarchal blessings. Remember, Abraham did that. He was given the blessings by God too, and he also blessed his son, and then his son blessed the next one too. And it was a kind of thing like that. And this is an important thing. It signifies that if you continue to be God's people, you're going to have these blessings in life. You know, God's going to be blessing you in these kind of things. So this is what he's preparing to do, and he's getting ready to do this thing. And I forgot to mention in the verses before that, in chapter 31, just a couple of quick things. Several places he says to them, be strong and courageous. He's lifting them up. He's saying, be strong and courageous. Another spot says, the Lord is the one who goes ahead of you. Do not fear or be dismayed. This is in chapter 31. Those are what? Positive things, uplifting things, encouraging things. How many here likes to be encouraged?
Yeah.
I sure do, you know. And there's something I learned. I was a supervisor, and then I was a shop chief, and then I was a manager. And I learned something important. You always praise in public.
Yes.
You criticize in private. If you got to criticize somebody, you don't do it in front of people. You don't do it. It's not the right thing to do. But when you praise them, make sure you know them in public. And this is what he's doing here. He's telling them all, you need to be strong and courageous. You're going to this dangerous area, and you need to secure the promised land. Don't fear. I'm going to be with you.
And
Isn't that an encouraging thing? Yeah,
Moses knew that he wasn't going to get into the promised land physically.
Right.
But yet it's beautiful the way he's giving them this blessing, and
So
he knew it was righteous.
Yes.
He was kind of affirming and
Yeah.
kind of like
Yeah.
reinforcing it.
Yeah.
Just like we do with our kids, right? Or
Yeah.
grandkids, or next door neighbors' kids, whoever we might interact. We try to encourage them. So that's what he's doing here. Now, because he knows something else is going to happen, they're going to fall away. Because God's already told him. He says, Israel's going to fall away. Don't be too dismayed, Moses. I know you're doing everything you can, but people are human, and humans will do this, and they will fall into sin. But don't worry, they'll also come back. He also talks about that as well. And he basically, another thing he does is he commissions Joshua. Who is Joshua going to? What's Joshua's going to do? He's going to be what? The next leader, right? He's going to lead them in the military campaign to secure back their homeland. And so he does that as well. And is that an encouraging thing to see somebody commissioned to take the place of you if you're going to leave? Well, we got a new leader. And Moses gave his blessing to this leader. And that's what he did publicly. Said that God is going to be with you. And he laid his hands on him. And all these things in a very public way. Is that going to be an encouragement too? Sure will. Sure will.
He probably gave Joshua really more courage too.
But he couldn't help himself. Well, actually, the Lord's telling Moses these things and tells him some of these things are going to happen. They're going to start worshiping those gods in the land. So be careful. Make sure they understand not to do that, but they will. And one of the things he says is, in this land flowing with milk and honey, which I swore to their fathers, they have eaten, and they have eaten and are satisfied and become prosperous. Okay? Well, that sounds good, right? Then, though, they will then turn to other gods and serve them and spurn me and break my covenant. So that's going to be human nature also. That's going to be part of the whole thing is the fact that they will do this. When they get to the point where they're prosperous and stuff, they're going to look around them and they say, oh, look at our neighbors that are the Canaanites and they're worshiping these other gods. Maybe we should add that to the worship of Yahweh. No, they shouldn't. But they did. But then he goes on and says to Joshua again, but despite all these things, be strong and courageous, because I'm going to bring you to that land. And then Moses goes on to say, this is Moses talking to Joshua. It says, after my death, they will act corruptly and will turn from the way which I commanded you, and evil will befall you in the latter days. For you will do which is evil in the sight of the Lord, provoking him to anger with the work of your hands. So he knows what's going to happen. God sees the past, the present, and the future in one view, because he's outside of time and space. He's not like we are. And so he knows that will be happening, but he's also knowing he's going to do what? Bring a deliverer to rescue them and redeem them. And this is to teach them something important. You can't follow the law all the time. You're going to fall. You're going to fail to follow the law. But don't worry. I love you, and I'm going to redeem you when you call on my name. And that ultimately points to who?
Well, to us.
Well, it points to Jesus, though,
Yeah.
right? Because the Messiah will change our hearts and transform us.
But, like you were saying, like a lot of people say, oh, the Old Testament, I only read the New Testament.
Mm-hmm.
We can learn from that even today. Yeah, we're human and we're gonna fall and we're still sinners, although we've been forgiven and have eternal life.
Mm-hmm.
But just like what the Apostle Paul said, it's a race, we have to keep going and we will falter. God will forgive us when we ask it sincerely, and then we can get up and keep going down the road that He's led for us.
Yeah.
So even from the past, He never leaves us or forsakes us.
Well, let's go back to our verses again here, because I got off track a little bit there, because I want to make sure we had that part in there. Starting in verse 1, Moses knew that his death was coming, right? He knew that. And he makes mention of it. It says, which Moses, the man of God, blessed the sons of Israel before his death. He knew this was. If you knew the day you were dying, could you prepare for it? I think you could.
A lot of people will get
Moses did his best to prepare by getting the people ready for it, because he knew this was going to happen.
And he knew when.
Yeah, I was going to read the verse too. What did I do with the verse? In Exodus, was it the first Numbers or Exodus? Numbers, there it is. Numbers 20, verse 12. I'm going to go ahead and read it. It says, but the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, because you have not believed me to treat me as holy in the sight of the sons of Israel, therefore you shall not bring this assembly into the land which I have given them. So this is the reason why. He's talking about at Meribah, where he struck the rock twice in anger. Okay, you did not believe me. In other words, you did not do the way I said to do it, because you thought you had a better way, and you wouldn't believe that I would do it. Because previously he had asked him to strike the rock. And it's kind of complicated to understand that, but he did. But not in anger, of course. And then this time he says, just speak to the rock, Moses. And Moses, I'll just do it the way I want to do. Bam, bam! And God still blessed brought water. But that was not what he wanted him to do. And it did it in the sight of the sons of Israel, it says here. So again, those kind of things, you held a much higher standard if you're a Moses. And that's why it happened. And because of that, you shall not bring them into the land which I'm going to give. And that's got to be very hard for Moses to understand. Anyway, go ahead.
And it's hard to relate to that because, like you were saying, God knows what happens before and now and in the future.
Mm-hmm.
So God already knew He was going to do that.
Yeah.
So I mean, was He set up to do that so there would be an example, or when they talk about free will, everybody has a free will. You can go the right way, the way the Lord leads you, or you can go the other way. But God already knows what you're going to do.
Free will is one of those sticky things I can't have. I don't have time to get into it a lot here, but it's been defined as the mind choosing. So the mind will choose your will. So if your mind is currently a corrupt mind, let's say, how are you going to choose? Well, you're going to choose corrupt things. But if your mind is not corrupt, it's been transformed by God, you should be choosing the right things.
And the difference.
Now, do we always do that as Christians?
Well,
no.
But the difference is we know Christ now, whereas the people in the world, they just go down the road thinking that's normal.
But when we do those things, is our soul stirred within us, realizing, oh, that's not the right thing? Of course it is. As Christians, it should be, right? Our conscience, if you want to call it that is given by God. And so those kind of things are affected after we become a Christian in a positive way. And so our will is determined by that as well. All that to say is, what is free will? We'll talk about that another day. But it can get kind of sticky understanding that. But it's the mind choosing. You still choose. You choose either because of, as a Christian, you want to do the things of God, or you choose, if you're not a Christian, because you want to do the things you want to do. So that's kind of an interesting way to look at it then, right?
Yeah.
So,
sometimes a stray thought will come across your mind, a wrong thought will come across your mind, and you think, where did that come from?
Well, yeah,
I don't
that's
want
where
to
we can acknowledge and say, I'm glad to see, Lord, that you didn't send that. That came from somewhere else. I can let that go.
It came from that human side of me. Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
And let's go on here. It says, consequently, chapter 33 contains because of this is, he knew his death was coming, right? Came because, as Moses' last recorded message to the Israelites, his final blessing over them included 3 parts. The first part was his blessing exalting God, first of all, as Israel's king, right? And that's where we get the part of the title as king here, by the way. And let's see, what was it? I lost track of where I was. God demonstrated his power in leading his people from Sinai, the mountain, the holy mountain, right? After they had left Egypt, they stopped at Mount Sinai, all the way through all their wanderings to the Promised Land. Second point is that Moses addressed Israel's 12 tribes by name, and we see that in verses 6 through 25. That's not part of our reading, but we can read it later. It goes on talking about each individual tribe, and it talks about Reuben, Judah, Levi, Benjamin, Manasseh, Ephraim, Issachar, Zebulun, Gad, Dan, Naphtali, Asher, and so it goes to the whole group of them, each one of them getting a separate part of the blessing prior to Moses leaving. He wanted to make sure that they all had that, so he by name called out each of those tribes. Each tribe had a special place in God's purpose for the Promised Land, and each would experience God's blessing for obedience. Third point in this is that Moses again reminded Israel of God's uniqueness, and that's the last part we're going to look at. We haven't got to that yet, but 26 through 29. That he was their dwelling place, that he would bring victory and provide security. But in verse 3, back to our main thing we read here, the pronouns we see changed person from the third person he to the second person you. The shift indicated a heightened sense of intimacy and closeness. Moses is more now like the father with the children, not like a boss with people he supervises, but he's with more like a father who cares about his children here, and he is reflecting God to them in this way, because God he looks upon them as his children as well, and so he's taking that to the heightened sense of intimacy and closeness. No longer were the words about God, they were to him. God's action and theirs. His holding and their listening had caused the relationship to go deeper now. God's words came through Moses, and he was the conduit through which God communicated his message to them. And the feeling for him that God had for the children of Israel comes through what Moses' words were there. It says in verse 3, for instance, indeed, he loves the people. All you holy ones are in your hand, God's hand, and they follow in your steps, and everyone receives your words. So we see that intimacy, the closeness there. He's talking about how he loves them and cares for them that much. And it's a word picture, and I think we're going to be talking about that later. So if I jump ahead now, I'll be upset with myself, so I'm not going to do that, unless it is coming up here. I think it might be. Verse 5, we see that expression became king. Also has been rendered as was king. Of course, God was already king over all of Israel, but the original text emphasizes that God had powerfully demonstrated himself as king by leading the people from Sinai, actually from Egypt too, with all the curses on the Egyptians, right? He led them through the Red Sea. He destroyed the Egyptian army. They went to Mount Sinai, and from Mount Sinai they wandered, and now they're at Canaan, the Promised Land. And there's a term here it's used. Where was that term? I knew it was. Oh, there it is. In verse 5, it says, "And he was king in Jezreel." There we go. When the heads of the people were gathered, and the tribes of Israel together. Where is Jezreel? What do you think about that word? Have you heard that word before?
Is that the same as Jerusalem? And Jerusalem was Israel.
Jerusalem means something altogether a little bit different there. It talks about a city of peace or something like that.
Yeah.
But it's a word that's interesting. It's only used in a couple places. If you look at handout number 3, which is the last page of your handouts, I have a definition there. And it's interesting to know this, by the way. It's a poetic word. It says the name Jeshurun means upright one or blessed one. And in the parallelism, which is the repetition of one idea over and over in successive lines that we see in a lot of Hebrew scriptures, this kind of poetic stuff, Isaiah used the same poetry. Jeshurun is a synonym for Jacob. Now, what's Jacob a synonym for? The nation of Israel. Yeah, exactly. The chosen ones of God that are following through the desert, right? God. So this is what he's using this word, this upright one or blessed one. That's a pretty neat word to use for them. Yeah. Would you feel good if somebody used a word like that basically said you were an upright one or a blessed one? Yeah, I would. Who doesn't like to be complimented, right? Anyway, for example, in Isaiah 44, 1 through 2, we see that word used. We see that Jeshurun is a poetic reference to the nation of Israel. So that is what he's referring to. This term is a term of endearment. The Greek Septuagint, which was translation of Hebrew to Greek during the Babylonian exile, during part of that exile, translates the word Jeshurun as beloved ones, using a form of the word agape. You've heard of the word agape before? Okay, what does that mean?
Godly love.
It's love. But what kind of love? It's godly love, but it's also sacrificial love. It means I'm going to do whatever I can for you. I'll put my life on the line, right? God is saying, metaphorically. Of course.
That's one of those that there's like 4 different types of love, right?
Yes, and it's the highest form of love. It's sacrificial love. It's where it's exemplified by what God did by having His Son come and then die for our sins. It's that agape love, or agapeo love. So the name Jeshurun is used 4 times in the book of Deuteronomy and in Isaiah. In each case, the name occurs in a poetic setting and refers to Israel as being God's beloved people. So it's almost like a pet name that your wife might have for you, or your kids might have for you, or as grandparent, or whatever. You know, it's a term of endearment. Does that make sense? It's like when Jesus made reference to God as Papa God, you know, and I forgot what the term was, but it basically translates that way. And so he cares for his children, is what it means, and that's what that word means. So is that a powerful word for them? Because they knew what it meant when he was using that word. They knew, and that would be something to hear and to understand how much he cares, that he would use that term of endearment. It says, when the heads of the people were gathered and the tribes of Israel together, he was king over them.
I think someplace in the study, I thought I read that sometimes God said Jerusalem, where he was referring to the Israelites, because it was an affectionate or a loving way of referring to the Israelites, that it was Jerusalem was going to be the Israelites' city.
Yeah. Mount Zion is used as being a special place from God. Mount Zion being also synonymous with Jerusalem sometimes as well, I think that's right. If Matthew was here, I'd have to double check me on that. He's not here today. Anyway, so let's go on. So sadly, Israel did not always live up, though, to that poetic name. That's a shame, right? Moses also mentioned how the leaders and the tribes came together. The reference may be when they came together at Mount Sinai. The whole group of people were gathered together at the mountain, and God was instructing them. It was a very, very important time at that, obviously, also. It says, where the people gathered together to affirm God's covenant. And that was a really, really interesting thing, too. And that's in Exodus 24:7, which I think is another one of my verses. I have several verses, really. It says, in Exodus 24:7 is when he took the book of the covenant and he read it in the hearing of the people. In other words, he was reciting to them the commandments that God had just given. Okay, Moses is saying all these things, and God is thundering in the mountain right behind him there, and then within the hearing of the people, and they, the people of Israel, all said with one voice, all that the Lord has spoken, we will do, and we will be obedient. Which sounds really good, but that was before they sinned in the wilderness and had to pay the price, right?
Yeah, when they were worshiping pagan gods and all that.
Yeah, that was later on, unfortunately. Anyway.
They tried, but
yeah, they tried in their own power, I think, is the problem with that.
Yeah.
So
that just shows how we never learn.
Yeah, but it does relate to us, because there's times when we also fail. But God is a gracious God, and He loves us. When you see these terms of endearment, that's for us as well. that God loves us that much.
He's merciful.
Isn't that neat? Yeah, he's very merciful indeed for us, and I'm so glad about that. So we also have another handout called Jesus and Deuteronomy. I don't know if I mentioned that yet or not. It's on handout number 2, which is the 3rd page in. And this is just some places where Jesus taught several times in some of his sermons and things like this. And he used words that came directly out of Deuteronomy. So I love when I come across people who says, well, we don't listen, Old Testament's just for, prior
History.
and it's just, it's a nice historical thing. We don't need to learn from any. I'm a New Covenant, New Testament only. Well, this says that God used the Old Testament too, that Jesus quoted from it. So we can learn a lot from it. And these are just some of the references. We're not going to go through them, but I just wanted to have you a copy as we finish up Deuteronomy here. Oh wow, time is fleeting on me already. Very interesting to see how many times Jesus did those things from the Deuteronomy verses. Any comments or questions on these things? So, I think it's in these verses we just read. Was it in these verses we just read? Oh, okay. In some of these places it talks about how the Bible portrays God in many different ways. And we've seen this in many of the verses we've read, not just in Deuteronomy. Some of the ways is as a warrior, some of the things as a king, right? Some of the ways as a shepherd. All these are examples of how God is referred to as. And so it asks the question you think about is, which biblical portrait or title comes to your mind when you think of him, and why? Any of these, specifically those 3, but maybe some others as well, does appeal to you as a person? Any of these things? Warrior, king, or shepherd, or anything else like that?
I think of him as creator.
Okay.
Because you look at the creation and
right.
It's beautiful.
It's a powerful way
yes,
to do that.
But also as father.
Yeah. Okay. Anyone else got any ideas?
And I think sometimes, I don't know how many people here have gone to the Holy Land and experienced, being there. And a lot of us haven't. But I think if you did that, you'd get a better view of the way things were and the way things go, the history of it and all that. We just read the Bible, and like he says, a lot of it is the New Testament because, that's where Christ came and all that. And we hear about salvation. But it's really hard to relate with a lot of that because that's like, to us, ancient history. Although we can take the principles of what was being taught to learn something from it, even Christ, even God was, holding fast to, his truth and all that, and he still had mercy on the people and all that.
Yeah.
But to put ourselves in that, it's kind of hard to relate to unless we study it and really get the meaning of the deep meaning of what was going on, so we can say, oh, okay, now I understand.
Yeah. I would pick shepherd of these kind of things in my. I love the picture of the shepherd. God is pictured this way. Who else is pictured this way? David, because he was a shepherd, right? And the Psalms talk about God as shepherd, but also Jesus as shepherd. And so the picture is of this loving shepherd who cares for the sheep, and the sheep care for him. He calls them by name. He knows them. He calls them by name, it says in the Bible. And when he calls them, they come to him.
Yeah.
And he takes care of them. He brings them beside the still waters. He brings them to the nice meadows. It's that caring picture, and he'll protect you from the lion and from the bear. David said those things. Remember that? And so all those things are a good picture also, along with king and warrior and creator and the one you said too. And I like them all.
Even the story about when he lost one, he went out to look for it.
The 99, yes.
So that puts us in our place
Yeah.
to say, even if I feel like I'm down and I stand and all that.
He still cares.
Yeah, he still cares, and he still could come and,
Exactly.
comfort me.
Well, let's get the last point because I've been spending too much time here. It's good stuff, though. The last part is dwelling place, and this is Deuteronomy 33, verses 26 through 29. For final 4 verses, I want you to note the phrases that represent security for Israel. Who has number 2? I think it's you. Go ahead.
Is that me?
No.
Okay.
There is none like the God of Jeshurun, who rides the heavens to your help, and through the skies in his majesty. The eternal God is a dwelling place, and underneath are the everlasting arms. And he drove out the enemy from before you and said, Destroy. So Israel dwells in security, the fountain of Jacob secluded, in a land of grain and new wine. His heavens also drop down dew. Blessed are you, O Israel, who is like you, a people saved by the Lord, who is the shield of your help and the sword of your majesty. So your enemies will cringe before you, and you will tread upon their high places.
Okay, so again, he's bringing it to something they can understand. They can understand what a king is. They understand what a dwelling place is. It says there's none like the God of Jeshurun. Now again, he's using that term of endearment, right? And it's a metaphor here. Who rides the heavens. You can just see this person who's king of us. You know, he cares so much for us. He's watching over us from the heavens. That's what the picture is. And he's in a position of majesty. And that should be something that would really, really spark in them the fact that we're being taken care of by this eternal God. And what does it say about a dwelling place? That's the title of our thing here. In verse 27, the eternal God is a dwelling place, and underneath are the everlasting arms. And he drove out the enemies before you and said, Destroy. In other words, do what I'm telling you to do, take back the land, right? So this is a picture of how God cared for something so much. He talks about things like everlasting arms. Does God have everlasting arms? Well, this does. But it's an anthropomorphic term. Now there's a big $10 word. It means how can you relate to God's power of different ways that he talks about it. Well, they use metaphors basically that we can understand. We understand a loving father, a big father holding his kids, right? With big arms. And that's the picture. It's a word picture. It's the same kind of thing. That God cares for us. He's put his arms around us. Even though God is spirit, we know that he doesn't have the arms like that. There's many places in Scripture it uses words like that. There's a place in Psalms that says he'll cover you with his wings, and under his feathers you shall be safe, or something like that. Well, God doesn't have wings, you know. He's not a chicken. You know. but these are just ways that we can understand these things. He talks about the eye that never closes. He talks about the strong, mighty arm of the Lord. You know. And these are just ways for people to understand. And they're called anthropomorphic terms.
It's just kind of symbolic, yeah.
Exactly. They put it in terms that we can understand, because we can't understand this God that's all powerful, God that's all present, God that's all knowing. It's hard for us to put our little puny brains around that concept, right? I have a hard time with it.
So just like the word eternity, how could we relate to eternity?
Some of the words that they use here is shield and sword. Okay, this Steve wrote for us here. These words are terms that are used to illustrate God's power and protection over the children of Israel. God's sword is that offensive weapon that will protect them. The shield is a defensive weapon that will stop the arrows and the sword thrusts of the enemy. So the picture is that he's going to protect you. He's going to be with you in your land.
I think another comparison would be like, put on the armor of God.
Yes, then we see that later on in Paul's writing.
For ourselves,
Yeah. I think it comes right from these verses, these kind of things. So his protection was a promise that I'm going to keep you safe and secure. And who doesn't like being safe and secure? You know, we do, don't we? In verse 29, Moses uses that word shield and sword to describe the Lord's protection. He defended them against attack, and he fought for them. They would have a role to play in conquering of Canaan, but ultimately the credit would belong to God, and God alone, right? There's a verse that talks a little bit about that also. One last verse that I have before I get those other verses. In Joshua 21, 43 through 45, it says, So the Lord gave Israel all the land which he had sworn to give to their fathers, and they possessed it and lived in it. This is like Paul Harvey's The Rest of the Story, by the way. And the Lord gave them rest on every side, according to all that he had sworn to their fathers, and no one of all their enemies stood before them. In other words, they couldn't stop Israel. And the Lord gave all their enemies into their hands. Not one of the good promises which the Lord had made to the house of Israel failed. All came to pass. And the problem was they got very, very used to their peace and prosperity and started to worship other gods, and that was their downfall. But at the point when they went into the land, they conquered it all. They had peace and prosperity on all sides.
So in other words.
God fulfilled His promises.
Yeah, he fulfilled.
Yeah. You're gonna say?
That's
Oh, that's what you're gonna say. Yeah.
He fulfilled all his promises, he held true.
So, what does it teach us about God and that He is our dwelling place? Well, the God of old, the expression in verse 27, connotes that the Lord's presence from throughout time. He spoke the world into existence and existed long before He called even Abraham. Somebody has A and B. Oh no, A. Somebody's got A. Excuse me. Go ahead.
Genesis 12, 1 through 3. Now the Lord said to Abram, go forth from your country and from the relatives and from your father's house to the land which I will show you, and I will make you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great, and so you shall be a blessing. And I will bless those who bless you, and the ones who curse you I will curse. And in you all the families of the earth will be blessed.
So did God fulfill His promises? He did. He did. Did they fulfill their promise to always obey Him? No, they didn't, as you know later on. So the prophet Habakkuk, well, that's a mouthful. Habakkuk also used this Hebrew word to affirm God's agelessness, and so we see this in Habakkuk 1:12, and then Micah also used it to describe Jesus as the Messiah in Micah 5:2. Who's got a B and C?
I do.
Read that for me.
Lord, Lord, are you not from everlasting? My God, my Holy One, you will never die. You, Lord, have appointed them to execute judgment. You are my rock, have ordained them to punish.
And Micah 5:2.
But as for you, Bethlehem, long word, too little to be among the clans of Judah. From you, one will go forth for me to be ruler in Israel. His goings forth are not from long ago, are from long ago, sorry.
That's okay.
From the days of eternity.
So we see that that's exactly right. God was ageless. He's before, He's going to be after too. And so, let's see, I'm going to make sure I get the last part. This everlasting God was Israel's dwelling place. This God that was described in these verses was our dwelling place too. We'll be with that, right? We'll be with Him. God's people would capture Canaan, but ultimately their home would be with God. The everlasting arms highlights how God would support them and carry them in the relationship with Him. His presence was the supreme blessing that came from His covenant, His agreement with them, right? Any enemy in Canaan would face not them, but God's judgment, because God was taking care of them. That's important for us too, the same way. We come across things like that in our lives too. God is with us in the same way. Anyway, He would destroy their enemies. In Leviticus 18:24 through 25, and in Deuteronomy 9:5 says something about that. And I got that one. Almost got it. We're out of time. It says in Leviticus 18:24 through 25, do not defile yourselves by any of these things. He talked about the things you shouldn't be doing. For by all these, the nations which I am casting out before you have become defiled, because they're worshiping these false gods. For the land has become defiled. Therefore I have brought this punishment upon it, so the land has spewed out its inhabitants. So part of what Israel is doing is reclaiming their promised land, but they were also doing something else. They were judging the nations who had disobeyed God as well.
We're kind of fleshing out periods.
In Deuteronomy 9:5 it says, it is not for your righteousness or for the uprightness of your heart that you are going to possess their land, but it's because of the wickedness of the nations that are there already, right? That the Lord your God is driving them out before you in order to confirm the oath which the Lord swore to your fathers, to Abraham, to Isaac, to Jacob. I have not forgotten that oath, that promise I made you, is what He's saying. Don't worry, I am not. And so God He's doing it for a twofold reason. Let's finish it up, because I ran out of time. Which is too bad, because I had a really good song I was going to, called Days of Elijah. By the way, have you ever heard of the song Days of Elijah? I have the lyrics right there in the bottom of the last page. But you should look it up on YouTube and play it. It's a really neat song. And that, unfortunately, I was going to do that, but ran out of time. Summary points. Christians can trust in God's love for them. Israel can trust in God's love. We are also His children, God's children. We can trust as well. Christians should find their security in God alone, and we should. We shouldn't go outside, go to other idols or other things in our life. We don't have those graven images in our home like they did. But we have other things in our life.
Oh, yeah.
We have things that steal away time from God, don't we? And so be aware of those things. Don't let that happen. So let's have a word of prayer. I'm going to have to just cut it off right here.
Just a funny thing, when I was growing up, I asked my mother when I was coming of age, why did you name me Abraham? Is it because of a president or the Bible? She goes, because of Abraham in the Bible, because he was the father of nations.
Oh,
Because I was just curious, like I had heard about Abraham.
it's a great name. It's a great name.
Yeah.
Let's have a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for the study we've done through Numbers and Deuteronomy, Lord. Just, Lord, thank you for the deep love you have for us. And we can trust you in all these things. That you're going to be our help and our security, Lord. Lord, I just pray we learn to depend on you, lean on you, to realize that you alone are these things in our life. Help us to be ready to share out with others, Lord, how they can also have that same hope and the reassurance that it only comes by you. I just thank you so much for sending your son, Jesus, to save us from our sins. In your son's name, amen. So I was going to read the last part, chapter 34, about Moses. So as we leave, I'll read that. Now Moses went up to the plains of Moab to Mount Nebo, to the top of Mount Pisgah, which is opposite Jericho. And the Lord showed him all the land, Gilead as far as Dan. He couldn't go in, but he could see it, right? Where all the land, where all they're going to be, the land of Judah and all that. It says, this is the land which I swore to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, saying, I will give you to your descendants. I have let you see it with your own eyes, but you shall not go over there. So Moses, the servant of the Lord, died there in the land of Moab, according to the word of the Lord, and he was buried in the valley of the land of Moab, opposite of Beth Peor. But no one knows his burial place to this day. And so then it goes on to talk about Joshua. So God took care of Abraham, even in death, because it says that he later buried him up in the mountain.
Well, let you at least
Was that
see
Abraham?
the land.
Abraham.
Abraham.
What's that?
Well, Moses at least
Oh,
will
books,
let you
books,
be able
books. Thank you.
to see the land.
Almost forgot. Thank you. Books,
Is
books.
that a new one?
These are the new ones. So if you don't want your old one, you can leave it in the classroom and I'll take care of it. These are the new ones for the new quarter starting next Sunday in Matthew. Thank you, guys.
Here's the old one.
And you don't want this one, you said?
No.
Okay. Alrighty. I took a little longer, unfortunately, but we had to cap it, right? So I
Right.
did.
So Matthew's not here today, huh?
He's here.
Oh, okay.
He's usually in the class.
Yeah.
Sometimes he's running late.
Oh, I
Yeah.
thought when you said that he was gonna be out for the military.
No, he's here today.
Oh.
He's here. He's just, he wasn't able to come to class this
Yeah.
day.
I gotta go pick up my wife, so I'll be
Alright.
back in a minute.
Thank you guys for being online as well. Almost forgot you guys were watching and listening. And just, God bless you, each one of you, and stand by the same YouTube station channel because our pastor Matthew Ellis will be bringing up the message shortly. God bless you all. See you later.
What is Steve?
I don't know.
Steve Meggs and Steve C.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Let's see.
it is.
Where is this here? End stream. There we go. There we go. It's ended. Yay.